Okay, so my name is Ms. Swan. Hello. Today you're here for a very special presentation. So obviously we expect you to be the best audience possible and be on your best behavior. You are in year 12, that's why you've been asked to come to this presentation. Okay, you're the only group that gets to see this, so you need to feel privileged about that today. We have a group with us from the Wordsmith 2013 program, which is part of the Going West Books and Writers Festival. I'm going to hand it over to them to introduce themselves, but like I said, pay attention. They're going to tell you some really cool stuff today about what they do and programs you can be involved in. And I expect you to be a good audience. Okay, so please give them your full attention and welcome them to our school.
Hello! Hello everyone, how are you doing? Are you good? That's good, thank you. Thank you for responding. Hello, my name is Eli, and welcome to the Wordsmith Tour of Schools. This is going to be 3 writers. They're all sitting over here. They're going to do a presentation to you about the way that they have managed to earn some money to live by being a writer. Now what I want you to do before we get started, you kind of loosened up and thinking about writing, I want you to turn to the person next to you and tell them what your favourite book is. Alright? Go for it. Good, wrapping up. Some exciting books there. Some people are so excited about their books they are high-fiving and 3-way hugging, I saw. Put your hand up, do you want to say Harry Potter was their favourite book? Anyone say? Yeah, nice. Anyone say The Hunger Games? What's The Hunger Games? That's pretty good. Anyone say Twilight? Anyone say War and Peace? Come on the back. No, I don't believe you. Put your hand up if you haven't really read a book, if you don't really like reading books. That's alright. I was talking to my friend Morgan recently. She told me the only book she has ever read all the way through is the Destiny's Child biography. So I'm sure you can feel better about yourself. But actually, most of the writers that we've got here today haven't actually made money from writing novels. They haven't written novels. Can you chuck your hand up if you can think of some other ways that writers might be able to make money?
You need to chuck your hand up in the air.
Yes. You can write short stories. Nice. Yeah. Anyone else? Yes? Yes? Newspaper? Yeah, you can write articles for the newspaper. Yes, right there. Right what? You can write a screenplay for a movie. Yeah, these are all ways. You're going to hear from a few different people. Now, after each person has spoken, they'll speak for about 10 or 15 minutes. Then we'll have questions for them straight after they've spoken. So if you have any questions, just keep them in your brain, and then after they finish talking, you can ask them those questions. The first speaker is someone who gets to do a lot of reading. Please, could you give a round of applause for Jolisa Gracewell?
Luckily my nose was stuck in a book. Is there anybody here who would frankly at this moment rather be reading? Yeah, me, that's me. I was this kid, right? Everybody knows one. I was the kid that had a book on me at any time. I had a spare book, a backup emergency book. The librarians knew me by name. The time the school did a readathon where we got sponsored to read how many pages we read. I bankrupted my family. I was that kid. If you'd asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, when I was younger, I would not have said a writer, which I am. Sorry. Okay. I would not have said a writer if you'd asked me what I wanted to be. I probably wouldn't have said editor either, even though I am that now. And I might not have said literary judge because I wouldn't have known what it was. but I would have said that I wanted to be a reader. If there was a job out there that meant that I could lie on the couch and read a book and get paid for it, I wanted that job. As it happens, there is that job, and this is the story of how I found my way to it. So, hands up if you've ever met a real-life writer before then. A few of you, excellent, excellent. I didn't meet a real-life writer myself until I was about your age, actually. A famous New Zealand poet. Oh no, this is the old slideshow. Oh no, that's okay. This famous New Zealand poet. The other guy was Mark Twain. He's from a long way away. A New Zealand poet called Sam Hunt came to my high school and spoke to us in the library. The one thing I remember about that encounter is that some enterprising student, not me, I was too shy, some enterprising student put up their hand and said, "Hey, Sam, sometimes they use your poems in the exams, so, you know, could you give us a tip on what to write if they give us one of your poems and say, what was the author thinking?" And I've never forgotten his answer, which was, if you do anything other than write down the poem exactly word for word, you're wrong. Which was kind of cool, a little bit seditious, and all the kids went, yay, and all the teachers were like, oh. But I kind of liked it, it stuck with me. Anyway, he was the first writer I met. And then coincidentally, last year, as part of a job I did being a literary judge, choosing who would get the Prime Minister's Literary Awards, we got to give them to 3 great New Zealand writers. One of them was Sam Hunt. So a couple of decades later, there I am at John Key's house, having a big literary party, giving a prize to this writer that came to my school to inspire me. There's something really cool and circular about that, but it wasn't a straight line by any means. It was a very zigzaggy path to get from that school library to the party at the Prime Minister's house, which, you know, say what you like about the Prime Minister, he throws a good party. What I did first was I studied Japanese. I was kind of a languages geek at school. Oh, yeah. This is my Japanese boyfriend. So beautiful. One of the great things about studying languages is that you get to go places and see things that you would never have seen otherwise. That, by the way, is Akebono. He's the American Samoan. Yes, he was the #1 sumo wrestler in Japan at the time. My hero of mine. Anyway, I studied Japanese. I went to Japan. It's okay, I can wait. I've got all day. I know you guys got lunchtime to look forward to. So, I went to Japan and I studied Japanese. I really got into it and started writing in Japanese about Japanese literature. I was kind of following my nose at this point towards being a Japanese professor or something. Then I took a little detour. I went to America to study. I wound up in a place in upstate New York, which is nothing like uptown New York. It was really in the middle of nowhere, and it snowed pretty much half the year. So, you know, for a bookish kid, it was like waking up and finding yourself in Narnia. It was actually really fabulous. And I met some cool people there. I did some more study. I again started writing. That's okay. Oh, there's a picture of a really Harry Potterish library. Never mind. You'll just have to imagine it. I kept doing my sort of academic work, right? So I was fully in professorial mode at this point. But around about this time, I was researching World War II, and I started to find these amazing stories in the archives. And not just in the archives, I found stories by talking to people. This would be one tip I would give you is, if you're at a family party or, you know, a marriage, a funeral or whatever, where there's a bunch of people from across the generations, if the old folks start talking, start listening, start writing it down, because that's where the stories will come from. So around about this time, I came across a family story, and then I came across some things in print. And they started bouncing around together in my head, and this was the first time I really sat down and wrote any kind of fiction. So, next slide. One thing led to another. I wrote a very short story, and when I say very short story, it was basically 1 page long. It was about 500 words. There's really no such thing as too short a story. You don't have to write a novel first go. And I sent it back to New Zealand, and it got put in a little book. There was a competition for very short stories, and it won a little prize, and that was incredibly exciting. But the next exciting thing that happened, and this is another hot tip for you guys, is be really nice to your brothers and sisters, because you never know what they're going to grow up to do. I used to lock myself away from my siblings to read books, but one of them grew up to work in TV and film. And she took my tiny little short story and showed it to some friends, and they said, this should be a movie. And so the next thing I knew, I'm helping write the screenplay for this short film, which was funded by New Zealand on Air. And people are marching around in World War II uniforms, and we're borrowing a film projector off Peter Jackson, and we're trying to find a camel to shoot this particular scene that's set in Egypt. We couldn't find a camel, so we had to make it with a donkey. It's a great little film. You can watch it online anytime you feel like. But that was just a magical moment for me of taking some tiny little story that I'd stumbled across, putting it together with a couple of other things that were running around in my head, and then putting it out into the world and seeing what people would make of it. So no story too small to make things like that happen. Around about the same time, I was still enjoying my academic kind of university work, and I totally respect that world, but I also wanted to write things that got out to more people. I wanted to write things that my mum could read. And so I started reviewing books for the New Zealand Listener, also reviewed for Metro and sometimes on Radio New Zealand and so on. Reviewing books is that dream job where you get to lie on the couch and read the book, and then somebody pays you for writing about it. And it's a job I actually really, really love. I've reviewed and reviewed and reviewed, and one thing led to another, and a publisher contacted me and said, I like your reviews, you're quite a detail-oriented person. Do you think you might be interested in reviewing books before they're published? And this was the point at which I shifted into editing. So I've edited quite a few books. Actually, this is the exciting moment where something I said in a book review wound up on the cover of the American edition of the book. So that was a buzz for me. But I thoroughly recommend these books, actually, if you like The Hunger Games, if you like Twilight, that sort of thing. The Dream Hunter books by Elizabeth Knox, who's a New Zealand writer, are absolutely fantastic. They're set in a sort of alternative world, New Zealand, 100 years ago, but with different technology. It's great stuff. Anyway, I edited a whole bunch of books. Editing is one of my favourite jobs. It's a little bit like gardening, where you walk into someone's beautiful garden and you think, this is gorgeous, but if I cut off that branch there, you'd be able to see through. And if I planted this kind of thing over here, it would suddenly blossom in that corner. So it's quite a creative job in a way. Somebody else has done all the hard work, but you get to come in and sort of put the feather duster around and fix it up for them. Every now and then you find a mistake that if it had gone to print would actually be a little bit embarrassing for everybody involved. I won't tell you which of these books it is, but in one of the books I was editing, the story is set in America. Has anybody in the audience been to America? Or have you? Yes. So you'll know exactly what I'm talking about here. Thank you. The main character is an American woman, and she's living in her American house in her American state. And at one point in the story, she steps out into the garden and trips over a dead hedgehog. Now, looks complete. There's no problem there, right? Except that there's no hedgehogs in America. It would be as if a New Zealander stepped out of their front door and tripped over a dead squirrel. So we had to take out the dead hedgehog and we put in a dead squirrel. That's the kind of fixing that I do. It's not just punctuation and things, it's actually details like that. So recently I've been doing more editing of books for young people. This is Rachel King. She's written a couple of books for adults, but she's also recently written a young adult novel called Red Rocks. And this is what a book looks like before it's a book. It's just a big pile of paper. The story of this story is that Rachel was walking around the wild windy beaches of Wellington one day with her tiny baby, cranky baby on a bushchair, just pushing this child around trying to get him to sleep. And she'd been reading recently books about selkie legends, the legends of selkies. Selkies are seals that can become human and vice versa. It's an old Irish-Scottish myth. And she looked out into the sea on this Wellington beach and saw a seal and suddenly thought to herself, what if there were selkies in New Zealand? And the nice thing about being a writer is you can not just have that idea, you can make it true. She wrote down a story, and now there are selkies in New Zealand. And this is the book that you can read about them in. Red Rocks by Rachel King. And it won a prize at the Library Awards a couple of weeks ago for being the best piece of fiction for 15 years and under in New Zealand. Although you guys could still read it even if you're over 15. It's actually a fantastic read. If you've read The Dark is Rising, or any of those kind of slightly magical adventure books. It's in that same spirit. It's a really, really fun read. Another one I've done recently, maybe for slightly younger readers than you, but if you have younger brothers and sisters, is this by Joy Cowley, who you might have heard of. She's a great New Zealand writer. She publishes for every age group, from Mrs. Wishy-Washy all the way up. So you will definitely come across her work at some point. This is a fun book about two kids and their worst nightmare. They get sent away for the summer holidays with their grandparents, who are hippies, who live in a house that's got no electricity, no running water, no Wi-Fi. I know it's kind of a nightmare story, but it's really great. As part of the fact-checking for this one, I had to figure out whether a 10-year-old could learn to drive a car in 2 weeks. And then I had to ring all the bouncy castle rental places in Auckland and ask what would happen if somebody ran across a bouncy castle with high heels on. Just part of the job of being an editor is fact-checking with details like that. So, as well as doing editing, I do things like this, where I come around and talk to you guys. I get up off the couch occasionally, and I do literary festivals, where I get to meet my heroes, real authors, and ask them tricky questions, and things like that. Another thing that I do as a result of editing and reviewing and so on, I've been asked to judge things, so literary competitions and so on, and this is where I can actually help you out, because one of the things I judged this year was the Mix and Mash competition. It's run by the National Library of New Zealand and Digital New Zealand, and what they aim to do is to teach people how to use things that are out of copyright. So, copyright stuff is things that you can't copy or use, but Creative Commons is things that are yours to just use any way you want to. And there's a world of information out there, as you know, all over the web. There's gorgeous old photos, there's music, there's bits of video, little bits and pieces. And the Mix and Mash competition encourages you to put them all together and tell your own story. The theme for the next round is the future. So if you've got a story about the future that you'd like to tell, and you want to have a go at telling it, do that. I can tell you that there are cash prizes, all the way up to $2,000. Yes. So don't let that be your only motivation, but it's certainly a very good one. And they're also looking in a separate category, they're also looking for traffic safety videos. Humorous, interesting, intelligent, sad, whatever. If you feel like making a video of some sort, this will be a great way to do it because, again, cash prizes. So that's a little bit about how I followed my nose and sometimes got up off the couch and actually wound up with a job reading books for a living. If there's anything you'd like to ask me, just go straight in.
Anyone have any questions at all? About editing books or reviewing books or anything like that?
Sumo wrestlers, movies.
Questions later on, just feel free to come up at the end of the presentation and ask us. Our next presenter has sold over 100,000 books in New Zealand. So she's pretty cool. Please give a round of applause for Janet Martin.
Well, hi everyone, it's great to be here. My children came to this school, they're coming up to 40 now, so it's good to be back here. How are you all? That's good. Okay, so my name is Janet Martin. I live in Titirangi in the Waitakere Ranges, and I'm surrounded by beautiful native birds, which is what inspired me to write my little rhyming books about New Zealand native birds. Now, if you've got an idea and you're really passionate about something and you think it's going to work, don't let anyone put you off. Okay, so there's several ways to get things done, get a book published. You could go through the traditional publishers, try that. You can enter in competitions is really great because if you win a prize, some of them have as part of the prize, they publish your book. So that's really cool. Scholastic and other publishers sometimes run those. So just keep an eye out and enter as many competitions as you can if you like writing. I like playing with words and I like rhyming. So, my first book I wrote was called Abigail Fantail, and that was back in the year 2000. And I saw a gap in the market back then. There wasn't that many rhyming children's books that were written in a simple way that my grandchildren and friends' children could relate to. So I decided to write one myself. And I actually decided to publish it myself. So, and I got all this information and asked for advice along the way, because this is a real learning experience for me. You never stop learning. Part of the feedback I got was, oh no, don't waste your money. The book market is a really hard market, especially children's books in New Zealand. It's a really small population base. But I thought, no, I'll do it anyway, and I'll just try the first book to see how it goes, and then if that pays for itself, I'll go on to the second one. So I'll show you what happens next. Thank you. This just shows what you can do if you're passionate about something, you believe in yourself, and you just keep trying. Great things can happen. Because I'm really proud of my books, because they've all, except for the latest ones, they've all been reprinted and they're still in print. I'm just going over inspiration. Abigail Fantail, my first book, was inspired by walking through the bush around Titirangi, and a little fantail was following me. So I wrote Abigail Fantail, who couldn't keep still, as they can't. Anyone tried to photograph a fantail? Virtually impossible, they just won't keep still. So that was Abigail Fantail. Next came, this is my favourite book. Some of you may have seen these books because they've been around for up to 13 years. Oh, this one was supposed to sing, but I bought the wrong book. I was supposed to sing to you in a little Louis the Tui voice, but anyway, yeah, this was Louis the Tui, inspired by the tuis in my garden. And has anyone here got tuis in their garden at home? Yeah. Do you love their song and their singing? Me too. So this is Louis the Tui, who couldn't sing, who thought he couldn't sing. And then he met Annie the Granny, who played the guitar, and found out that he could sing, really, after all. So, because he tried, and he found out that he could actually do it. He became a star at the end. And I really like the moral behind this story, that if you work at something and try hard enough and you get inspiration, that you can actually do great things. I want to share a few words with you, because I really like words. So this might start sounding like a little rap song. This is my very latest notebook computer, as you see, which also doubles as an iPad. This little notebook goes around with me wherever I go, and I use, I've probably used a few up by now, but this is the current one. I take it on the train when I go to Newmarket, because I also work during the day as an accountant, which that also entails using your writing skills, because you write to a lot of professional people. And when I get little ideas in my head, I write them down, and sometimes I finish a book that I've started. In fact, one day I was writing one, Joe the Kakapo, and I was stuck. And I suddenly got inspiration whilst sitting on the train going to work. And I was writing away, and I looked out the window and I thought, oh no, where am I? I don't recognise any of these buildings. And I completely missed my station, had to go all the way into Britomart, get off the train, wait for the next train back to work. Fortunately, I got a really good boss. Can everybody hear me okay? So these are the words I like. I'll have to get into the rhythm of it. Rhyme and rhythm. Inspiration, imagination, observation, concentration, information, aspiration, cooperation, collaboration, application, and then comes publication, celebration, congratulation, satisfaction. Yay! So it's very satisfying to actually, once the book's been published and printed and all put together, to actually hold that book in your hot little hand and thought, oh, I did it. It came from an idea in my head and into a story, and then illustrated by my fabulous illustrators, and then finally published in a book. And the best thing is when I meet people from way back whose children actually know the books. And I get feedback that way, and also do storytellings at preschools and schools with music, because my partner is a musician. We put music to the stories, and he plays the ukulele and the bass, and we have a lot of fun doing storytellings that way with the music added. So this was Molly the Moorpork, inspired by my grandson who stayed one night. He's now 22. He stayed one night when he was a little boy, and he was scared of the scary moorpork outside the window. So I said, oh, don't worry, it's just Molly the Moorpork. So that was that book. Who likes the sound of moorporks? Moorpork. Who can do the loudest moorpork? We have fun with this, with our storytellings, and all the children yell out moorpork. Mia the Kia, this was, I'll just touch on my illustrators a bit. So just touch on my illustrators. The first book, Abigail Fantail, was illustrated by an art student. And she went overseas, did a fabulous job, went overseas, did her big OE, so I had to find another one. So I found Ivor Treskin at the Titirangi Market. Anyone been there? Titirangi Market? Lots of artists go, and he was working doing portraits with airbrush work. He did airbrush work, and he was painting surfboards. He hadn't done a children's book, so I said, would you like to try doing a children's book? And he did, and all of these books have been illustrated in colour pencil, which he hadn't used before, but he came up with these fabulous bird characters. So this is Ivor Treskin's favourite book, because he loves going skiing down in the South Island. And this is a story about a naughty little Kia that does naughty things like pick off windscreen wipers and stuff like that. And I could read a page out if you want. Would you like me to read a page? Okay. Mia liked pouncing on things that were left unattended by folks. It was wrong. It was theft. After camping and skiing on mountains so high, the people came back to their campsites to find their cars had been pecked at, with bits falling off. Other things had gone missing. They'd get such a shock, while Mia sat laughing behind a bush close. She thought it was funny. To friends she would boast. And the next one I did was Janet the Gannet. Who's been to Muriwai Beach? Wow, lots of people. Aren't the Gannets cool out there? And the surfing? And the swimming? So Janet the Gannet's a really special book. This was the first book that I incorporated one of my grandchildren into, young Jack. So it's a story about Jack who dreamed of flying. And the gannets at Muriwai Beach, because I always get inspired when I go out and watch those gannets flying around and wish that I could fly just like them. Kiri the Kiruru is another one that I'm inspired by my garden at home. You actually don't have to go far to get inspiration. Just look around you. This is part of the observation thing. The greedy Kiruru come into my garden and gorge themselves with guava berries, and they can hardly fly off. So this little Kiruru fell out of a tree and along came young Daniel and saved Kiri the Kiraroo. And my grandson Daniel is in this book, my other grandson, and this is his favourite book. And that's the other real cool thing about writing, is that you can put people you know into the story. And Joe the kakapo, because I'm really fond of these birds. That was you probably know all about the kakapo, and they're endangered. And what else can you tell me about them? Nocturnal parrot, not many left. Camouflaged, yeah. So this was a story inspired by sliding down the track when we were coming back from the lookout at Cornwallis, walking down a slippery track, and that's what happened to Joe the kakapo, and all his bird friends came to rescue him. Emily the kiwi. I wrote this when I was learning to play the ukulele. Anyone here play the ukulele? There's a few people, but it's such a cool instrument. And you know, it's not, you can make them sound really good. My partner David plugs his in to sound system and with effects pedals, and you can make it sound like an electric guitar and all sorts of things. Enough crumbs for everyone. Inspired by feeding the birds in the park, and I thought, there's not enough crumbs for everyone. In an ideal world, there would be. So that's that little story, and it's got my other grandchildren in, Lucy and Jack, which are actually drawn from actual photos of them that I sent down to the illustrator. Pupeko shoes. This is a little girl's book. They seem to like this book because little girls love shoes. And Marigold came back from overseas. She was my illustrator, my first illustrator, and contacted me and said, I'd love to do another storybook for you, because by that time she'd had a little girl, got married, had a little girl, Valentina. So I got her to do this book. While she was illustrating this book, she became pregnant with twins. Right at the stage that this book was at the printers, being printed, just about ready to hit the press, she gave birth to twin girls. So I phoned her up and I said, what do you want to name, do you want to put your dedication on the back? What are your twins' names? She said, oh no, we can't, we just keep arguing and fighting about it, we haven't decided. She said, just put to my beautiful baby girls. So that's what we did. So when we reprint this book, we'll put their real names in next time. This is No Other Moa that I wrote last year, I only published last year. I ever came back to do this. And this is a story about the moa in the Auckland Museum. It's set in the Auckland Museum. You probably can't see the pictures. But it's a little boy that goes to the museum and visits the moa and imagines what it would be like if the moa came to life and took him back into the past. So that's all my stories. Has anyone got any questions?
Does anyone have any questions for Janet about writing for children or anything else that she spoke about?
We've got some bookmarks for any questions.
Yes, over. Which is your best-selling book?
Louis the Tui, and also Emily the Kiwi.
Anyone else got any questions? Yes.
Eli, am I allowed to?
You can do your Russian.
Okay, on one condition, that you repeat the words after me. Okay, get into the groove. Inspiration. Imagination. Observation. Concentration. Information. Aspiration. Cooperation. Collaboration. Application. Which leads to publication. Celebration. Congratulations. Satisfaction.
Awesome! Janet Martin, everybody! These presentations as well are part of the annual 18th annual Golden West Books and Writers Festival. There's a whole bunch of other things happening out west that you can be a part of. There's a thing called Phase 1, which is films made by people about your age, which is happening at the Corbin East Estate. There's also a thing called Seed, which is a songwriting project. It's a workshop happening this Saturday. If you're interested in writing songs, you can go along to that, and all the information is in these brochures, which I'll put over here at the end of the presentation if you want to come and pick one up, along with some information about all the writers and a few of Janet's bookmarks as well, if you want one of those. We've got one more speaker. Please, would you give a big round of applause for Carl Burnett.
G'day everyone. Man, it's weird being back here. This is my old school. That notice at the start about bringing your togs, that brought back some horrible memories. I was a kid, absolutely hated PE. I mean, you wouldn't know from my amazing physique. But I'd always try and get in trouble so that they'd make me go and pick up rubbish or something. My mate was all hunched over. Speaking of the swimming, we were changing, and he was all hunched over in the corner, my mate Jason, and this other dude, James, comes up and whips him on the butt with his towel. Jason jumped up and bared all for everyone. We all saw how small his pickle was. He got given so much crap about that until he left school, and honestly it was my mate Jason, not me. Enough stories about Massey High. Yeah, so I'm now a writer. I actually got into writing through acting. When I was here, I got a part on Shorten Street. Was on it for not very long, only about 13 years. What are you doing? There we go. It's me 20 years ago. That's like 1992 or 1993 or something. This is me now, so clearly I've had a bit of beer and pizza. It's me getting married. So basically, because I was on the show, I had lots of opportunities. I got asked to do game reviews for a bunch of different magazines. Anyone into video games at all? Yeah, a few of you. That's the first game system I used to play on. Pretty lame. I actually won one on Trade Me the other day, and it's absolute crap. I'm kind of wishing I didn't buy it, but you know. It's a New Zealand-made system called the Fountain Force 2, and that got me into gaming. So if we can move on to the next slide. This here is Gears of War 3 on the Xbox, all about killing aliens. Next one, that's Halo 4 on Xbox, all about killing aliens. And this is what I used to play. And that's all about killing aliens. Forza 4 on the Xbox, Dirt 3, and what I used to play. All awesome racing games. So I don't know how I got into gaming because it was so bad, but anyway. So yeah, I ended up writing game reviews. I started out writing for Pavement magazine. It may have actually been a magazine called Planet, I can't remember, I'm that old and my brain's not what it used to be, but I think it was Pavement magazine. But anyway, that was the first thing I did. I didn't get paid for it, it was just a little thing I did to get the free games back in the days of PlayStation 1. Then I did a column for this magazine, which some of you may have read, I'm not sure, it's probably a bit below your age group. But when that came out, that was for guys and girls, and then I did reviews for N64 and PlayStation and stuff for about 3 months before they replaced the video game reviews with reviews of hair products and makeup. Then after that, after leaving Shorten Street, I got a job as the editorial assistant at Autocar magazine. So basically we drove cars. My job, because I was right at the bottom, yes, I did get to review cars and stuff, but I was mainly doing all the odd sort of weird stories and also doing the stuff like weighing the cars, testing the 0 to 100 times, which was always fun, testing how well the brakes worked. It was my introduction to professional writing and my career as a motoring journalist. After that, I went freelance, wrote for New Zealand Performance Car, NZV8, Probably a few Westies around here into the V8s, the Hollands and the Fords, aren't there? Yeah. And Top Gear magazine. Top Gear was probably the most fun because unlike the cars like Performance Car and NZV8, you don't actually really get to drive those because they're people's pride and joy, but with Top Gear you get given a brand new car for a week, full tank of gas. It was kind of cool. For a while there I was in between jobs and unfortunately I had to get on the dole, but it was quite neat showing up to the Winds office in a brand new BMW. Then I wrote a novel which I'd been quite successful in my writing. Everything I was writing was being published in papers and magazines and stuff like that. And then I decided I'm going to write a book, and this one's called The Bible 2, This Way Up, The Chosen One. And it's about a guy who has to save the world from an evil midget who's got his knees on backwards. I sold maybe about 20 copies in all the people I know, so I'm probably never going to write another book. Then I went back to writing car stuff again. I got the job as a senior journalist at Driver magazine, and I also wrote for NZ Today and Classic Driver. First day on the job, this was my office. We moved to the next one. That turned up, get to drive a Porsche C4S around all day. That was kind of cool. We got told to spend a couple of hours taking photos. We pretty much came back when the office was closing, because it got in a bit of trouble, but yeah, it was always fun. After that, again, I left to work on another project of mine, which this time was a movie. This one's Captain Amazingly Incredible and the Space Vampires from the Evil Planet. As you can tell, I like quite long titles. This one's about Captain Amazingly Incredible, his special power, he's got a superpower, which is he's got a light bulb on his helmet that goes off and emits a siren whenever danger's nearby, which is a really crap superpower. Gets him in trouble, obviously, when he's trying to hide from the bad guys. And he's trying to rescue the world from that dude in the background who wants to turn everyone into aliens. He's got this big machine and he's got this vat full of stuff that he puts into this ray gun and it blasts people. Sorry, it turns them into vampires, not aliens. Same thing, whatever. I don't even know, and I wrote it. But his son was walking along eating some butter chicken and slipped and it fell into the thing. So now all the vampires are speaking like this. But it's not racist because I got Taran Mahanbai to do the voice for it. So, and then we're moving on. After that, went back to doing cars. This is my own website. I'm currently not updating it because I've gone back to games. More of that in a sec. But yeah, basically I just did this for the free cars. It was quite sweet. That's got to spend a week with the HSV GTS. Got to do test all the new FPVs, all the supercharged ones when they got launched and stuff. You do get some sort of slightly less exciting cars to test, but it's all part of the fun. I actually got that stuck on the beach because I didn't deflate the tyres. And yeah, that's just a boring little, move on. Guy with goldfish in his earrings. And so this is what I'm doing now. In 2010 I decided to write video games, and I discovered this software called Game Salad, which enables you to do it without needing to know how to program a computer. That's my first game, and I've designed it to look like a Commodore 64 or Atari style shoot 'em up. I suggest if anyone wants to get into making video games, download Game Salad because it's completely free. You don't need any programming knowledge whatsoever. You can release games for iPhone and Android and all that kind of stuff. I found that it was a bit limited. I wanted to do 3D games, so I learned another language, and this is the kind of writing I'm doing now. That's, if anyone here is into computer programming, anyone do any kind of computer programming? Yeah. What language is that? C++. That's pretty much the first program you'll learn in C++, and all it does is display hello world on there and then close down, which is pointless. You can imagine how much code it takes to make a game. You think writing English is hard, try writing them in computer code. So I moved on to Unity, which sort of bridges the gap between writing in native code, which is really hard, and the Game Salad sort of drag and drop thing. You still have to code everything, but it's much simpler. And I released this game here, which is another retro style game. I really loved Mario Kart on the old Super Nintendo, so I wanted to do something that looked a bit like that, but was also with sort of F1 style cars. That one did alright, and then I released this one, Bogan's Run. Loosely based on my mate Phil, who lives on Waimumi Road. It's about this dude Gazza, who's always stepping in the chewing gum that his girlfriend spits on the ground, and that's why he can run up the tower. It's pointless, but it's a bit of fun. And now I've moved on to bigger and better things with a mate of mine who we've been playing games since Commodore 64 days, and we're currently working on this game, Get Gravel, which is a 3D racing game, sort of top-down view, but hopefully that'll be launching in a couple of weeks. But obviously the only problem with developing your own games is you don't get paid. You've got to wait until you put them in the store. The other one, the last one I did made a little bit of money and it kept me alive for a while. We're hoping this one will do better, but the problem is you've got to obviously pay the bills in between that time, so I'm still writing. I'm doing video games now for, there's a kitten. I'm now doing video game reviews for Touch Arcade, which is the biggest iOS gaming site in the world, which was pretty cool getting that job. Had to do everything in American language, and they spell everything really strangely. And I'm also doing a column in On Film magazine, which is the New Zealand film and television industry magazine. And I'm doing write-ups on the industry, the gaming industry in New Zealand, which is actually surprisingly big. I don't know if you know that the crowd down at Wellington made the All Blacks games and the Rugby League games, and just trying to think what else. Oh, Into the Dead, which is on iPhone, and that's had something like 8 million downloads. They're doing really well. They're probably the biggest. Sheed or Pitcock are probably the biggest development company in the country, and it's surprisingly big. And I suggest if anyone's interested in computer programming, don't get into games unless you really love games, because working for a game company they don't pay much. But if you're into programming at all and you do want to learn, you can step straight into a job earning over 100 grand a year, which is pretty cool. So that's, and I'm not doing that, I chose the game route, so I'm poor. And that's what I'm doing now. So thank you very much for listening to my big, long, boring spiel.
Any questions for Carl about writing for video games or car reviewing or any of those sorts of things? Yes, up there. You have a crash car?
Is this the one still? Hello? No, I haven't. Actually, yes, I have. Well, sort of. No, I that HSV GTS I took back with quite banged up rims from hitting the curb a few times. And also I had a little Peugeot 208 GTI, or might have been a 308 GTI, I don't know what it was called, but the neighbour reversed into it. Oh, and that's right, another one. I have crashed a few actually. I had a $150,000 VW Touareg, and I took it back to VW, and they've got the car park up on the top of this building with a big concrete wall there. Parking sensors were going off, but I thought I'd get as close to the wall as I could anyway, and I bumped it. Went round the front, only a little scratch, but you know, it's about $10,000 worth of damage when they replace that. So yeah, I guess I have crashed a few of them.
Awesome. Any other questions? Yes.
How many coding languages do you know?
Well, I learned C++, and I don't know that. So, but C++, C, JavaScript, anything that's C-based pretty much. Once you know C++, everything else is really easy.
Any more questions? One last one? Yeah, right at the back.
How many stars did you make out with on Chocolate Street?
Too many to count, I think.
Presentation, but like I say, there's some information about these writers and some brochures about the Books and Writers Festival, which I will leave down here if you want to come up and grab some. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you.